Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Slawek Sochacki and I am very excited because even though I'm in Poland right now, thanks to Dance Vision, I have chance to connect with you all live and share with you some of my thoughts and ideas about principles in ballroom dancing, particularly in American Smooth, but I hope that even though you dance maybe international ballroom, international Latin or American rhythm, you can still find some of those tips to be useful and helpful. So let's start with good posture. I believe good posture is crucial for good dancing because this is how we carry ourselves across the floor. So if we look good, we dance good. So important thing to understand a good posture is to understand 4 blocks of weight. So the first block, it's the head weight. Second block, your shoulders. Third block, your ribcage. And the last one is your hips. So I believe the head weight is probably one of the most important ones simply because of 2 reasons. The weight on the head and is because it's on the top of our body. So every little problem with where we put our head weight in relationship to the rest of the body, especially towards our feet, will have some negative consequences with our balance. So, how to better understand where the head weight is supposed to be? I like to think that the head weight is part of our spine, and those 2 parts of our body are very strongly related. So again, head weight and the spine, I like to think as a one piece together, right? So if you think of your spine, what is your spine doing? It's always relating itself towards the heel because that's where our spine belongs. Our spine belongs to our back. So this is what I always wanted to be, dancing towards the heel. Now, since my head weight is part of the spine, I like to think that my head is also going to be always looking for the spine, not towards the front of the foot, but towards the back. Okay? So this is number 1 idea. Dance your head with your spine back, but obviously also up. So try to pick up the distance, visually think that the distance between your ears and your shoulders wants to be as long as possible. So dance your head, back and up, okay? That will help your chin to always stay in a parallel position to the floor. You don't want your chin to be picked up because then you're making the back of your spine, back of your neck short. So that's the first layer in our blocks of weight, our head weight. Number 2 is your shoulders. So shoulders are very important visually because they connect with neck. They're connected with the neck. So often you see shoulders being elevated towards the ears and that makes us look very tense, very uncomfortable. Now, that will always create problems because we want to look effortless with our movement. So anytime, like I said, shoulders up, we don't look good. So what do we need? We need to naturally think that the shoulders need to be connected down towards the hip, towards the feet. But a very common mistake, what I see with the awareness of our shoulders is that we're trying to just push them down. So we force muscles to be to connect our shoulders down into the feet, into the hips, into the floor. But it's not good because it will create tension in the muscles in our back. So I like to think of rotation through the shoulders. So I'm using my lats and roll through the shoulders. Then you can think of your arms, everything is rolling out. What it does, it sends rotational way, sends your shoulder away from your neck, away from your ears, away from the head, and as a result create this beautiful long line between the shoulders and the neck. So first you can do just roll your shoulder with the arm as much as you can. Then you can hold, just for practice right now, hold your shoulder where it is and roll rest of the arm the other way, right? Then you can bend your elbow and if you're looking for the frame, there you go. That's how your frame is done. If you do the other one the same, roll it out, hold your shoulder, roll rest of your arm the other way, bend your elbow, doesn't matter if you're boy or girl, boom, this is it, okay? So what we learned from it, connect your shoulders down, not through working down, but through rolling forward and up. You can think of your shoulder muscles going back, down, forward and up. That's the projection, okay? So third layer, our ribcage. So what the ribcage do, they always need to project forward, okay? So because I like to think of the ribcage as a body weight, and the body weight needs to be always ready to go somewhere, right? And the someone is always forward because it needs to resist some other parts in our body. Anytime when our ribcage moves back, we look like a banana, it doesn't look good, okay? So, ribcage, and I like to actually think the sternum. So because sternum helped me to find, I'll go a little further so you can see the whole view. I like to think that my sternum always wants to vertically connect down towards my front of the big toe, okay? So this is where I find my awareness of where my sternum, my ribcage is supposed to be in the relationship to my standing foot. So if you think about having your sternum to the front of the foot, that will put your spine right towards the heel. So you can see my ribcage is perfectly aligned over my standing foot, okay? So in relationship to your head weight, remember we said your head weight is dancing back and up, so diagonally end up going diagonally back. Think of your ribcage dancing forward and up, so it will end up going diagonally up. Yeah, so you see, head weight dancing back and up, ribcage forward and up. Okay, that is the feeling of what my ribcage is doing. And the last block of weight, again, another important one because all of them are actually important, right? But what's important about the hips is because I believe this is the most flexible part of your body, right? We need to have a strong awareness where we send our hips in order to relate again the hips with the rest of the blocks, but also help us to relate this section with the movement, since that's where this is the area where our center of gravity is. Okay, so what I like to think of the hips, because naturally our hips wants to bend backwards, right? So it naturally releases our knees. You see, it's going to be a very important role for our hips to link the upper body with the legs. So pretty much any time when I start flexing my hips back, I will start feeling my knees going forward. See that? This is the feeling. I don't want to just send my hips back because it will make me lose balance if I don't use my knees. But if my knees are working together with my hips, that gives me balance. So you see, naturally, knees work forward and down, where the hips went back and down, rib cage, forward and up, head back and up. So you see, those 4 diagonal lines actually help me to keep my blocks aligned, and knees naturally sort of find themselves related to the rest of the blocks, okay? Now, that will take me this feeling of sitting. That will take me to one of my favorite visual feeling of what I'm looking for in order to have a good balance and good posture in a ballroom dancing. It's the awareness or visual of 2 people. Sumo wrestler and a ballerina. Why those 2 very extreme? Well, what is the sumo wrestler wants to do? He wants to drop his center of gravity down to be very stable, so no one will knock them out, right? So this is what we do. See, we flex our knees forward, we send our hips back, and that's what keep us balanced, right? But it doesn't make us look good for ballroom dancing. This just makes us safe and stable. So if on top of that you put the ballerina, which has a very long body and a very high center of gravity. So now if I think from the pubic bone, I'm going to think up is the ballerina, from pubic bone down, sumo wrestler. See that? So now, see, I don't need much space in my room. I can just have that feeling, and that's already helped me to understand better. If I just rock from foot to foot, that already helped me to understand better how I can still use my joints and maintain beautiful picked up body while my base, my joints are still very active, right? Now I can just shift from foot to foot being pretty level, or you can start creating a little bit of swing action going down and up, right? But you see, I use very much my hips to absorb the weight. So again, sumo wrestler, ballerina, right? And this is the feeling which we're constantly going to be looking for every single time when you flex your knees. So what I like to think of it, about this position is that my body creates two curves. One, it starts from my heel, goes to my knees, and from my knees go towards my tailbone. See? So this is the first curve. The more you flex your knee, the deeper the curve. But the second curve will go from my tailbone to my sternum, and from my sternum to the back of the head. So this is the second curve. See? So that creates a dynamic, again, lines, dynamic pictures in my body. But then if I go up on my toes, now we're only looking for ballerina, no more sumo wrestler, right? So now look, my body creates only one curve now. Still from the back of my head to the sternum, to the hips, to the foot. See? So now if you think heel, obviously heel is still up, but you can still see curve is not as deep as we did when we flex our knees, but it's still not perfectly straight. The body still has this dynamic curve. So you're constantly going to work or change between one curve or two curves. Okay? That will help you to be active and balanced. So this is how we're looking for dynamic balance. This is how we're looking for the good posture. Frame, awareness of rolling through the lats and shoulders, elbow roll the other way. Always think this is the small bone in your elbow. Take it out. Yeah? So that helps you to have always a big space. Here I like to think that I have a cactus under my armpits, and every time if you hold the frame, you still have your sumo, but then you're picked up. Then you're going to start creating all the dynamic lines, which we'll talk a little bit more about it later. Okay? So this is how I like to think about my posture. But there's one important factor missing, which for me, it's again super important. It's a foot pressure. Why foot pressure? Because if you're not going to be constantly supporting yourself from the floor, very quickly you might get tired and therefore tense. So especially when we dance a lot of rounds, maybe some of you dance pro-am, either as a professional or as an amateur, sometimes we have a lot of rounds to dance, so our dancing has to be efficient. Also the way we hold ourselves up, okay? So every time when you're going to use the foot pressure, that will help you to be so much more efficient with the way you move yourself across the floor. So here's the foot pressure, few ideas about what needs to be done, because you probably hear a lot about foot pressure, but what it really means and what it does to your body. So number one idea, do not try to tense your feet when you do foot pressure. So in other words, if your foot, and I'll come closer so you can see it, if you see your foot start doing this, like start tensing and you start feeling like your toes sort of curling, it's not a good feeling. Why? Because you actually start pushing yourself away from the floor. And here's the interesting sort of idea. There was a research and they found that any tension in the shoulders comes from the tense feet. Okay? So you see, and when we start talking the foot pressure, the last thing I'm looking for is to make you look tense. I'm actually looking for much more relaxation through the body. So in other words, make sure when you use foot pressure, don't tense the feet. So how to do it? Well, some of you maybe did a few push-ups in your life. So what is the goal to do push-ups? It's to build the strength of your upper chest, your shoulders, your bicep, your tricep muscles. You definitely don't want to increase the strength of your fingers and your hands, right? So you're pushing down to actually elevate yourself up. So this is the same feeling what you need to looking for when you do your foot pressure. So let's say imagine if I'm standing on my left foot, and again, I'm gonna imagine I'm doing push-ups through my leg. So if you, in my opinion, and everything what you hear here, remember, this is just my opinion. So if you do the foot pressure and you feel you can still wiggle your toes, that means your foot is not tense. That means I believe you do it correctly, so your body still can be relaxed, yet can be picked up and supported, right? Because what's so beautiful about the foot pressure is the fact that it connects you more with the floor, but at the same time, picked you up more. So you look so much stronger, so much taller, right? It's sort of like a tree of life, if you know, has so much more sort of feeling of going down, the roots going down into the floor as much as what we see outside. So it's sort of the mirror image of bottom and the top. So this is sort of what you want to feel, that you're growing the roots through your foot all the way down into the floor, going through. That makes you very strong, yet at the same time very tall and beautiful. Okay, so this is the foot pressure. Now, how you do it? Well, like everything, you need to keep repeating over and over. The more repetitions, the better. Again, the situation we are right now at, that we kind of need to stay home most of the time. You can use this time as you may be cooking, or I don't know, reading, having your coffee. You can do this foot pressure exercise when again you go down to go up. You can do like 5 times. One leg, go sideways, right? And then the other one the same. Push down to go up, right? Now, why this is so important? Because besides everything else, help you to create all the actions we talked about earlier about your balance, about understanding of how your blocks of weight are aligned one on top of the other. So what do I mean by that? If I push down through the floor, I start having much more leverage, so now I can feel like my spine can work more back. Okay, and as a result, remember we talk about the head weight is part of it, my head weight can go there too. But now, at the same time, if I only work backwards, what happens to me, I'll become back weighted. Because anytime when you start feeling your sternum goes away from your big toe, you become back weighted, period. Okay, so what do? You need to imagine martini glass picture. So, narrow, long base. I mean, the leg, the base is actually wide, but then we have a long, big sort of leg, and then it starts separating evenly the same outwards, right? So imagine, here's your foot is your base, long leg, and then it starts separating. So the feeling is the rib cage goes forward and up as much as you can, and the spine with your head goes back as much as you can, back and up. So I want to feel in my body this sort of separation between body weight dancing forward and spine dancing back. So if you feel one of those elements does more, so let's say I want to dance more forward with my rib cage, at the same time I have to dance more with my head and spine. If you think your spine and head weight needs to dance a little bit more backwards, make sure your rib cage also project a little bit more forward. Otherwise, you're gonna end up being front weighted or back weighted. Either one will sooner or later cause you losing balance. Okay, so, and again, you can only achieve that if you're going to first start from the foot pressure and then work from that. Okay, now, as much as you separate or expand is the good word, forward and backward, I also want you to the same expand your rib cage sideways. So again, from your foot pressure, we're expanding outward. So my way of thinking is, I like to think of the foot pressure as an amplifier. So imagine if you have, let's say, your phone and you're going to play some music. You can hear it when you keep it pretty close to your ear, but the big ballroom might not necessarily be able to hear it. But if you plug your phone with your music to the amplifier and to the big speaker, all of a sudden the music is much louder, everyone can hear it. So this is what your foot pressure will do to your action. Your action is the music in your phone, but the foot pressure is the amplifier which makes the music much louder. So this is how I like to think about it. So that's why I believe the foot pressure is extremely important for the way you look, the way you dance, the way you carry yourself from foot to foot, the way you connect with your partner. So it's going to affect every aspect of your dancing, I believe, no matter what style you're dancing, ballroom, Latin, rhythm, or smooth. Okay, so again, this is how I believe. Anyway, let's move on. Let's talk right now a little bit about rotation. Okay, because this is again another very sometimes confusing action, because we want to rotate, we want to look more three-dimensional, but we don't understand sometimes where the rotation comes from, and as a result it can create some problem with balance. So I like to think of 3 stages of rotation. So first stage happens horizontally, okay, and if I go a little bit away again, it comes from your ankles, right? So first thing, maybe I should say the difference how I like to think the difference between rotation and turn. Now, why this is so important? Because I do not want to rotate my body and turn at the same time. So you might talk about rotation of the body, turn of the body, and turn of your feet. I like to use different words for the rotation of the body and for the turn in my feet, simply because I like to separate those two actions very much. So if you change where your feet are pointing, right, especially the one you stay on, I like to think of it as a turn because it's easy to measure, all right? Now, you can turn keeping your body very still. See that? Now I'm just turning my left leg, but my body stays very still. Look. See? Or you can rotate the body, but this time my foot stays very still and the body just rotating. See, now I rotate to the left and to the right. So what I'm trying to say, I don't want to rotate and turn my foot at the same time. I either rotate my body or I turn my foot. Okay? See that? That will help you to create much more balance in your actions. So anyway, if that is more clear, the difference between turn and rotation, now let's go back to rotation. So 3 stages. So like we said, first one happens through the ankles, left to the left and to the right. So that will be your horizontal. Okay? So problem with that, often I see that dancers start rotating through the upper body way too early. And again, that creates a lot of problems because they lose the alignment of the blocks of weight. And that's the very common problem with rotating body from the wrong places. It loses alignment of the blocks of weight. That's why make sure that when you start rotating horizontally, which is left and right, try to think of your ankles as the source where you start. Okay? Now, on top of that, I like to think that my feet turn inside my shoes, but the shoes are not turning. Remember we said earlier, make sure your shoes stay in the same direction, but the foot inside wants to have that little movement, right? Which will make the awareness of the feet being more involved towards the floor, right? So that will give you the feeling of going to the different edges, either outside or inside, as you start rotating to the left and to the right, okay? So that is the first stage. Now, in order to keep more awareness in your hips, you can put your hands next to your hips like that, and start rotating again to the left and to the right. So your goal is to see that one hand with one hip is always forward or ahead, one is backwards. Okay? So that sort of show you that you start creating the rotation lower below your hips. Okay? Now, so this is the first stage. The ankles rotate to the left and to the right. But because we rotate, and then obviously that rotation continue spreading out all the way to the upper body, I want to make sure, and again, this is super important to understand, make sure you rotate around your spine. Do not rotate your spine. So if you have an image of the pole, and the pole is supporting the building, you want to make sure you stay very nice and straight and has a nice support. So that's what the spine does to your body. Even when you start rotating, rotate around it. Don't rotate the spine itself, okay? Later, we're going to talk a little bit maybe how to create shape so you understand better the curvature in our body. But right now, just try to understand that your spine stays still and how we can keep it still. Again, foot pressure will be very useful when you think the more activity in my body, the more awareness of my spine dancing to the heel. So now I can rotate through my ankles, through my hip, and then all the way to the upper body. Okay? So this is number one. Feeling through where we start our horizontal rotation. So the next layer, next type of rotation is in our hips. So I like to think on top of that what the hips did by following what my ankles did horizontally. On top of that, I want my hips to work diagonally. Okay? So you can sort of think of it as a letter V, right? You can think of bikini line, or you can focus that sort of the X line. See that? Like this. And you can think of one of your hips either working towards the opposite foot, down, or hip is working up. Either way, some of you prefer to focus on what's go down. Some of you prefer to think what's go up. See? But it doesn't really matter, the picture will be pretty much the same, okay? So now, imagine if we combine those two actions, those two rotations. So imagine I'm going to rotate and I'm going further away so you can see me, that my feet are not turning. I will rotate through my ankles to the left, and now through my hips, I'm thinking up and left or down and right. So that's create already, you see, this blending. So the hips actually start creating sway through this diagonal rotation. See? So now what I'm doing, I'm blending horizontal rotation with sway through my hips. You can go one way or the other. So a good way to feel it is if you go from side to side and start thinking the same. Ankle rotates to the left and the hip go up and left. Ankles goes to the right and the hip go up and right. So the good drill is to feel now that the opposite hand can touch the inner thigh of the opposite leg. So this way you know you're rotating enough. Now, simple way to catch if you still are well aligned is if your sternum, even though you start creating the angles or curvy lines in the body, sternum vertically still has to be connected to the front of the foot, and the spine and the head weight is still dancing back to the heel. Still dancing back to the heel, head and spine, sternum still to the front. So see that opposition create again balance, okay? So this will be the most common activity, the most common way how we blend horizontal rotation through the ankles and diagonal rotation through the hips. And now we have the third one through the upper body. So I like to think now my sternum as a sort of center, as like a dial. And now this one is gonna rotate up and down. So you can think of it as a south and north freeway, and it works this way. Yeah? So you can only practice that. You can practice that by doing just that one. You can stand or sit down. You can just work on the flexibility of the ribcage. You just work this way. You can help yourself with your hands to sort of show your body what you want it to do, right? So you can see I'm still trying to have my head pretty stable and still, okay? So now again, the goal is to connect those three actions together. So again, I'll go further away. We'll start with ankles rotating again horizontally to the left. Hips will go up and left. Now we have a dial rotating, same as the hips, just much more in a vertical way. See? And then I can finish with my head, and that's create a beautiful curvy shape. So now you can bring your feet together. You can point it to the side, but you see my balance is dancing purely to the front of my left foot. That's where my sternum is dancing, but spine and head weight dancing back towards the heel. Okay? So now you can use still the same leg, but now rotate, and just rotate first through your ankles to the right and to the left, maintaining the same. So what we're doing, we're learning, see before we were rotating being vertically, now we're trying to create the same horizontal rotation to the left and to the right, but now maintaining much more dynamic curve to the body. So we can go one way, now we can go to the right, same ankle rotate to the right, hip go diagonally upright, sternum rotate all the way up and down, sternum is still connected vertically down to the foot, spine dancing with the head back to the heel, and now again you can rotate through the ankle, now maintaining the same. See, so imagine if I have a frame, doesn't matter if I'm a boy or girl, see, I can create all these dynamic shapes. See, now imagine if I'm dancing smooth, I can pick up, and that will create some underarm turn, for example, one way or the other. See, if I dance again, dynamic rotation through the ankles, through the hip, through the rib cage, I can look up to the hand and create a turn. See that? So that's something what you probably don't do much in international ballroom, but in American Smooth we'll have those pendulum swing and turn happens quite a lot, especially at a higher level. So, but as you can see, those simple understanding of how three different rotations are blended together that help me to create beautiful shape, and now I can learn how to later move in this position, looking either up or down, but you see, I still have same sort of like a spiral inside my body. So it's good to, at home, when you have a little bit more time right now to start experimenting, you can start blending and thinking how and where different direction can be sent through your hips, through your rib cage, through your ankle, through your arm, and then the head will respond to that. That will help you to find some very interesting shapes and help you to be better aware of how the blocks of weight are still aligned, but in this case, not necessarily vertically anymore. So now we call it curved block of the weight, so they are much more dynamically aligned, yet still what's my sort of source of reference is my sternum. So no matter what you're doing, no matter how interesting or abstract shapes you create, I want you to always think that your sternum is dancing towards the big toe of your standing foot, right? And your spine with your head weight always looking for the back of your foot towards the heel, because again, that keeps your rib cage aligned over the foot, no matter what angle you are at. That help you to be so much more balanced, but still relaxed and dynamic and very flexible. Okay, so I hope those few tips help you to enjoy yourself later in your dancing. And right now, since you have a little bit more maybe time at home, you may be a little bit sort of trapped in a little smaller spaces, you can use this time to sort of think about what happens in your body and how your body actually is related, how the blocks of weight are related with each other and how everything is connected to the foot, to the floor, and think a little bit more internally before you start spreading everything out and become again very external, very much outward going. And always start thinking into yourself and sense and be more aware of your own body. That will always help you to be better dancer, to be more sensitive. Okay, so I wish you a lot of health. I wish you a lot of comfortable sort of time through this uncertainty, and I hope everyone will be safe, and I hope I will see you all soon back again on a competition so we can share and dance together and be closer to each other and enjoy the time together again. Okay, again, thank you very much. Thank you, Dance Vision, for helping sharing and connecting us all together. Thank you very much and good luck. Bye.